The Moss Method for Greek, Lesson 1, A Troublesome Boy. For the first 3 readings, we will focus closely on pronunciation and syllabification. This is in addition to the auxiliary exercises that are provided in the course. In order to syllabify and pronounce Greek properly, one must have a clear knowledge of the vowels and consonants. So then to review, there are 17 consonants and there are 7 vowels altogether. Thus there are 24 letters in the Greek alphabet. The vowels in alphabetical order are alpha, epsilon, eta, iota, omicron, upsilon, and omega. Of these 7 vowels, there are 2 which are always short in quantity, the epsilon and the omicron, and there are 2 which are always long, namely the eta and the omega. What this means for the pronunciation of Greek will become clear in time. In addition to the 17 consonants and the 7 vowels, there are a number of diphthongs. In fact, there are 8 altogether. A diphthong, as the word indicates, means 2 vowels, di, that are pronounced as a single sound, phthong, a diphthongus. These 8 diphthongs all end in a iota or an upsilon. This is because the iota and the upsilon are actually glides or semi-vowels. That is, they split the difference between vowel and consonant, you might say. So then, keeping in mind that every diphthong terminates in a iota or upsilon, let's go through the reading now and circle every diphthong that we encounter. The first is pi, here, alpha iota, making a single sound. Dion, however, coming next, because its combination is iota omicron, this does not constitute a diphthong. So we have pi, we have chi, au and auton, ku and nous in kufanus, we have bi and ne in anabaine, oi in the word oikion, kai again, hu in the word huto, tous, chao, tu, lus, and be. In addition, in the word lupe, we have the diphthong pe, we have lu in kalumen, and that's the last one in this reading. When it comes to the process of syllabification, we must remember this simple rule. A Greek word has as many syllables as it has vowels and diphthongs. Therefore, if the word has 2 vowels, as echo does, epsilon and omega, then it has 2 syllables. If a Greek word has 1 vowel, like ha, then it has 1 syllable. If it has 2 vowels, as here, iota, omega, philo, then it has 2 syllables. Paideon, however, if one looks closely, has 4 syllables. Alpha, iota, iota, omicron. As we have seen, though, 2 of these vowels constitute a diphthong, and therefore this particular word has only 3 syllables, paideon. Greek words, as much as possible, want to follow the pattern of consonant-vowel, 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 where C stands for consonant and V for vowel. They are not able to do that, of course, if they begin themselves with a vowel, like here, and in a number of other instances, auton, epi, etc. But the general pattern, nevertheless, is consonant-vowel. When we syllabify, we place a vertical line between syllables. So let's do that now. We have cho, pi, de, on, ha, fi, lo, kai, ste, fa, non, ka, lo, au, ton. Ha, de, ku, fa, nous, stin, na, by, ne. Gar, pi, tain, oi, ki, on, pi, ton, hip, pon, kai, hu, to, tous, how, tu, fi, lus, fa, be. Paul, la, kis, lu, pe, tain, mi, cron, a, del, fein, ka, lu, men, tain, a, del, fein, he, le, nain, like so. The Greek language also has a set of markings called diacriticals. These include breathing marks, accents, and punctuation. A full explanation of accents is found on Greek Quick Sheet number 4, and eventually in the course you will be learning and memorizing all the rules of accentuation very thoroughly. At this point, we're only going to introduce breathing marks and touch on the question of accents. First, then, the question of breathing. There is what's called a smooth breathing, like so, and a rough breathing. The smooth breathing has always gone by its Latin name, spiritus, which means breathing, and lenus, which means smooth. So the smooth breathing is referred to as spiritus lenus. Then there is the rough breathing, like so, which goes by its Latin name, spiritus asper, meaning breathing that is rough. It's an aspiration. Now, if a word begins with a vowel or with a rho, any word that begins with vowel or with rho, this could be a lowercase rho, a minuscule rho, like so, or it could be a majuscule, an uppercase rho, which is written like this. If the word begins with a vowel or rho, it must have either the smooth breathing, spiritus lenus, or the rough breathing, spiritus asper. Let's look at each word in this passage and find out whether it has a spiritus asper or a spiritus lenus if it begins with a vowel or a rho. So the first one here is echo. Notice that this one has the lenus. It might be a little bit difficult to see. We can blow it up later. And so thus it is pronounced echo. This letter, the omicron, has instead a spiritus asper. And so this is given an aspiration. It is pronounced ha, as though it were spelled in English ho. We come next to auton. Notice the aspiration, the diacritical mark, always goes on the second of the two letters in a diphthong. This is a spiritus lenus, and so it's pronounced ow, not how. Here we have ha, asper, so ha, and here we have an epsilon with a spiritus lenus, a smooth breathing, once again, and so it's stin and not hestin. Then we have ana, bine, lenus, p, lenus, oi, kion. Notice the diacritical on the second letter of the diphthong, spiritus lenus, a, lenus, epi, lenus, huto, asper, with a rough breathing mark like so, as well as an accent, over the second letter of the diphthong. How, to, as well as adelphain and adelphain, these two showing the lenus or smooth. As I mentioned before, the Greek language also has three accents, the acute, the grave, and the circumflex. These look like this. The acute goes up to the right, the grave down to the right, and the circumflex goes up and then down. Some texts will write a circumflex in a way that looks like a tilde, like so. But this one is called the Porsonic circumflex, named after Richard Porson, the English classicist, who developed this version of the circumflex. Now, originally, these were not stress, these were not accentuation, these were tonal indications. Thus, some of the best books say that the acute indicated a rise of a third in pitch, the grave, the descent of a third, 3 steps, and the circumflex was up a third or a fifth, and then back down to the original starting point. There are some Greek teachers and speakers who seek to imitate this tonality as though it were Mandarin or Finnish or something like that. Most Greek speakers and teachers use the accents as stress, what is called ictus, adding stress or accent. In accented languages like Spanish or English has accent, although the accents are not written. Because this tonality is either difficult or impossible to imitate, my own pronunciation goes based on stress. So I say ko, pi, di, on, ha, philo, kai, stephanon, kalo, auton, ha, de, kufanus, estin, etc. If you want to try pronouncing these words in a tonal fashion, you can find various scholars online and amateurs who are seeking to do that, and you can speak that way if you wish. Consistency really is what I think is best to strive for when pronouncing Greek. And so although my pronunciation is by no means perfect, I do believe it is highly consistent. And if you imitate my pronunciation, you will achieve a highly consistent and conventional, meaning accepted at all colleges and universities, pronunciation. One final word about accents before we proceed to the reading itself. The accent is always placed on one of the three final syllables, counting from the right. And these syllables have names. They are called, first of all, the ultima, the last syllable, or the syllaba ultima, the penult, or the syllable penultima, the one before the last one, and finally the antepenult, or antepenultima syllaba, which means the one before the last one. So you will hear me refer to these frequently, consistently, as antepenult, penult, and ultima. And an understanding of these final syllables will shape our understanding of the proper syllabification and pronunciation of the Greek language. A final word on accents before we turn to the reading itself. The antepenult can only take an acute accent. The penult may take an acute or a circumflex, and the ultima may take an acute, a grave, or a circumflex. This is a very important lesson to learn, and we will review it often. Before you follow along on my analysis and translation of Reading 1, you're going to want to watch the videos on how to use the Moss textbook, and secondly, the pronunciation of the Greek quick sheets. Let's look then. Echo paidion haphilo kai Stephanon kalau auton. I have a child whom I love, and I call him Stephen, or Steve. Echo, philo, and kalau, these are all first singular verbs. Now, when we list the lexical form of a verb, the most basic form, it is standard to use the infinitive, ekein, like so. And for philo, it would be philein, like so. And for kalau, kalein. What you can see from this is that the infinitival ending, the present active infinitive, is epsilon, iota, and nu, or ein. When we conjugate the verb, that is, add a personal ending, we remove the infinitive, and we put on one of the personal endings, o eis e, omen ete usi, from Quick Sheet 1. Now the verb echein, or echo, means to have, Latin habere, and because this omega shows us first-person singular, we know to translate this as I have. The object is paideon. Objects, or direct objects, are always accusative in Greek, and this one is neuter singular and accusative. So here we have a complete idea, a complete sentence. I have a child. The rest of the sentence is going to be modification and expansion. I have a child, ha philo. This ha philo includes two different items. It includes both a relative pronoun, ha, and it includes a verb, which is taking that relative as its object. Now this might seem to go a little bit quickly, but you can watch and rewatch the video to review until you're confident with the concept. I have a child, echo paidion, a child whom I love, and kai, I call him Steve, Stephanon kalau auton. Kai here is a conjunction. Remember, there are 8 parts of speech in the Greek language. You should review the video which explains parts of speech and be comfortable with the concept of a conjunction. The conjunction joins together two different things. Here we can see the conjunction kai is joining these two parts of the sentence, or really it's joining echo and kalau. So then, I have a child whom I love, and Steve is what I call him. Echo has paideon as its object, kalau has auton. Now paideon, as I said, is neuter, singular, and accusative. You might ask, why is a word referring to a boy neuter? Well, this is one of many different words which means child, and it can be feminine or, it can refer to a male or female depending on context, but it is in form neuter. The lexical entry then, which you will find in the back of Moss, is ta paideon, like so. Ta paideon, meaning a child. We have here the neuter article in the singular and accusative, and we have the neuter noun, which it modifies, in the neuter singular and accusative. If you have studied Greek or Latin in some other course or setting, You may have learned how to parse nouns and adjectives differently than I teach here. My preferred way is to list in this order gender, number, and case. Experience has taught me that this is the most effective way to describe nouns and adjectives in this particular order: gender, number, and case. And so I'm going to ask that you follow that when you hand in assignments for parsing. The relative pronoun ha here has paidion as its antecedent. It too is neuter and singular. This is because a relative pronoun takes its gender and its number from the antecedent. The antecedent is that which the pronoun replaces. That is, the antecedent is that which the pronoun replaces. This particular one is called a relative pronoun, and here is how it's formed. We take the article, ta, remove the tau, and aspirate, and there you have a relative pronoun. The case of the relative pronoun is determined not by the antecedent, but how it is used in its own clause. So paidion is the object of echo, and coincidentally, ha is the object of philo, and thus it is also accusative. I have a boy whom I love, and I call him kalo. Here we have the next verb, also first person singular. You can tell by the ending, kalo, philo, and echo. And I call him, auton, Stephanon. Auton is masculine, singular, and accusative, referring to the child, the male child, and it has an object complement, Stephanon, in the same gender, number, and case. Some verbs in Greek, as in Latin, take two objects. Kalo is one of these. A Latin example is vocare, to call someone something. So I call him, the child, Stephanon. Stephanon has a majuscule or uppercase sigma to indicate that it refers to a proper noun. We continue. Hode kufanus estin. And he, hode, he is kufanus, empty-headed, or a knucklehead. Hode, you can see here, is the article, masculine singular nominative ha, and the very prevalent particle de. De has two separate meanings. It can mean and, continuative, or it can mean but, adversative. We'll talk much about this particle because a proper understanding of particles is essential to a sophisticated understanding of the Greek language. Something else we want to note here, and that is hode, which we will see many times in Moss, always indicates a new subject. It's equivalent to the Latin ille. It means a change in subject. Or in the plural, we will have hoi de, which would be Latin illi. So the subject of the first sentence was a first-person singular, I have, I love, I call. Hode means new subject, in other words, Steve. And he is, estin, he's kufanus, he's empty-headed. Moss has a particular way of introducing compounds. He uses this dash here for words that are compounded. You can see it in anabaine. I've mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. Eventually in the Moss readings, this editorial convention is done away with, but at the beginning it's very helpful. You can see here the word nous, which means mind, and it has the prefix kufa, meaning empty. You can see here the verb baine and the prefix ana. And last for this sentence we have estin, which is the third singular form of the verb anai. Again, always listing the verb by its infinitive, anai. This is Latin esse. It's a copulative or existential verb. It's the most common verb in the Greek language. It means to be. So the 6 forms of ami or anai, esse, that are listed on Quick Sheet 1, these should be learned very early. Ami, esti, esmen, este, asi. The reading continues. Anabaine gar epi ten oikion, epi ton hippon. Gar is a conjunction, and it's regularly translated as for. The Latin form is nam or enim. Gar is inferential. It gives a reason as to why something happened. So why is it that he is empty-headed? Well, here's why. For anabaine, he goes up. Anabaine is from anabainein. Notice I list the infinitive again, anabainein. Baino, to go, and ana means up. Furthermore, anabaine has the third singular ending, epsilon iota. So again, the primary active endings, o, ace, a, etc., Here is the third person singular ending A. For he goes up anabaine onto a house, epitein oikian, or onto a horse, epiton hippon. What we have here is two prepositional phrases, each of them introduced by epi. You can see epi and epi. Now typically it wouldn't be necessary to repeat the second one, but because this is a beginning textbook, Moss includes both instances of the preposition. The preposition epi can take the accusative, it can also go with the genitive and with the dative. And it has a different meaning when it takes different cases as its object. The object of epi here is accusative, tein oikion, which means up onto a place. And the object of this one is also accusative, ton hippon. We have oikion in the feminine singular and accusative, and we have ton hippon in the masculine singular and accusative. They are separated by this disjunctive a. So in the same way that kai is a conjunction, notice kai here, a conjunction, linking things together, this particle a is a disjunction. It separates things. He goes up onto a house or onto a horse. We continue, kai huto tous hautu philus phabe, and in this way huto, his own friends, tous hautu philus, he frightens, phabe. We have the conjunction kai, we have huto, which is an adverb, Latin ita or seek, perhaps. Adverbs in Greek routinely end in omega or in omega sigma. Again, adverbs in Greek routinely end in one of these terminations, o or os. Huto. In this way, what does Steve do? Same subject, carrying over from the previous sentence. Steve frightens, phobe. Notice the third singular epsilon iota ending. Again, the primary active endings, o, ace, a. Here's the third singular. Singular, plural, first, second, third. Left these out. You can check on quick sheet 1. He frightens. Now, whom does he frighten? Well, we're looking for a direct object, and we have it here in tous philus. Tous philus is masculine, plural, and accusative. Don't forget to review the articles from quick sheet 1. Hatu, toton, hoiton, tois, tous, etc. The direct object of phobe, tous philus, the friends. Whose friends? Tous philus, hautu, masculine, singular, and genitive. His own friends, the friends of himself. This particular genitive, hautu, shows possession, but the genitive generally expresses three distinct ideas: origin, partition, and possession. There are other meanings, but these are the most common: origin, partition, and possession. We go on to the next sentence. Polakis lupe tein mikron adelphain. Often he causes sorrow or he irritates his little sister, tein mikron adelphain. This sentence has 5 words and 3 distinct ideas. Polakis is an adverb, many times or often, Latin saipe. The Paul portion of polakis is related to the adjective palou, meaning many. This is polakis, that is many times, with the temporal kis suffix. Many times or often, he causes grief, lupe. You can see on the end of this verb the epsilon iota of the third singular primary active ending. He causes grief, and it takes an object. The direct object of lupe is this accusative, tein mikron adelphain. Adelphain is feminine, singular, and accusative. It means sister. The masculine form is adelphos. It's modified by this adjective, mikron. This is the first adjective that we have had, other than this predicate kufonus. What kind of a sister is it? It's a small, a mikron sister. And this ending, alpha nu, is also feminine singular accusative. So why alpha nu instead of eta nu of adelphain? Well, the difference is that the stem of mikron ends in a rho. See, I've circled it here in green. When the stem of a noun ends in one of 3 letters, epsilon, iota, or rho, then the eta which we would expect, becomes an alpha. Thus mikron. We will review all of these things many, many times. So if you feel overwhelmed at this point, watch the video a second time. Don't panic, don't worry, it will all become clear. Oftentimes he causes grief, he annoys his little sister. Lupe again from the infinitive, the lupain, to cause suffering or to annoy. And finally, the last sentence. Kalumen tain adelphain Helenain. We call Kalumen, the sister, tain adelphain, we call her Helenain, Helen. Kalumen now has the first plural ending, Remember from quick sheet 1, O, ace, a, the primary active endings. Amen, there's the one we're dealing with. Ete and usi. So plural and first person. Amen. Kalumen, this is from the verb kalain. Here we have it in the first singular at the top, kalo. Kalumen, to call. And remember in the first sentence, when we had kalo, it took an object, aton, and an object complement, Stephanon. Here kalumen takes an object, tain adelphain, the sister, and the object complement, Helenain. We call the sister, what do we call her? We call her Helen. So tain adelphain and Helenain, feminine, singular, and accusative. Notice in the first example, the object complement, Stephanon, came before the verb, kalo, and then the object. Here we have the verb first, kalumen, then the object, tain adelphain, then the object complement, Helenain. This shows that Greek has a tremendous amount of flexibility in its syntax, which means word order, and an amazing amount of flexibility not enjoyed by either by either Latin or English.